This is the 2024 Kia Seltos, and we drove it recently as part of a larger 6-vehicle affordable SUV comparison test. Here's what our editors thought.
One thing that immediately stood out as soon as you sit down is just how nice this is.
Yeah, this was my favorite interior, hands down, and it combined a lot of good things. Everything felt nice, everything looked nice. It was just, you know, the design plus the materials, just a home run in general.
Yeah, the materials quality is outstanding. There's still some plastic, which isn't really unusual for the class, but so much of this is softer and better padded and nicer materials. And there's still some fun visual cues, like the speaker mesh is
Very fun.
Textured, but that feels premium instead of just we put a nice color on it because we could. It's a very high quality interior that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I think what really stood out was this brown interior. It had the highlights on the dashboard, the seats, they just look very nice.
Especially compared with something like the Trax with kind of that funky color. You don't really know what's going on. The vibe here is much more mature, premium, just lovely.
Another stark difference was what's under the hood. This is the SX Turbo, so it has 195 horsepower, 4-cylinder, and it was the fastest in the test. It was more like a hot hatch than anything else here.
Yeah, it's a great powertrain. It's much improved over the previous generation Seltos too, with the switch to an 8-speed automatic from its previous dual clutch. I thought the transmission shifted real well. It's nice and quick, fun to drive. That's not necessarily a huge thing for shoppers, but it's a really nice thing to have, and it really adds to that premium feel of the Seltos.
Well, and the 8-speed really stands out to me, especially, you know, we're complaining about those other CVTs.
Yeah.
This 8-speed it's a great pairing. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. Shifts are just no nonsense when they're supposed to happen, not abrupt. It feels natural and it's a good match.
That combination of power and interior, this is the luxury and the sport option of the group, which is interesting. What adds to that was also surprising. This was quiet to drive.
Very quiet, probably among the quietest in terms of the road noise, the wind noise. The powertrain was nice and quiet.
Yeah.
Compared with some other ones, it was refreshing to get inside, and here, not a lot.
Yeah, the bar's kind of on the floor for a lot of SUVs in this class when it comes to noise, but this clears it and then some.
I'm still having lasting effects from the mileage drive after being in the Crosstrek.
The lack of noise is notable.
Yeah, it's done really well, which again, for being the quickest, most fun to drive, one of the best handling of the group too, is very notable. Also, what's really notable, tied with the Trax for the best value score. So it's interesting because this is the most expensive vehicle, the Trax is the least expensive vehicle, and they both tied for the most value. And value is not just being inexpensive, it's what you get for the money. And the Seltos did get dinged for its high price, but it was offset by features that the other cars didn't have. So those unique features, ventilated front seats, a reclining back seat, a hands-free power liftgate, that's like solid SUV territory to have that feature that none of the others in this test had. And then also the warranty.
Very nice.
You know, Kia's 10-year, 100,000 mile powertrain warranty really helped it, solidify that value win, even though it is the most expensive in the test.
And all of those combine, you know, the warranty, the features, the interior, the driving experience, all of those combine to elevate it above the others and give it more of that premium feel that it's kind of surprising from, you know, an entry-level SUV.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What I struggle with this car is how it compares to larger SUVs, and at what point do I make the transition? But here, among its class, it's, you know, top marks.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about where it didn't do so well. Now, it did well in a lot of places. There's one area where it was absolute bottom, and by a lot.
Fuel economy.
Fuel economy.
And that's a big one, unfortunately.
Huge.
People care.
Yeah, so the 28.4 miles per gallon that it got in our fuel economy loop was considerably lower than the best-in-class Corolla Cross Hybrid at 47.4 miles per gallon. And even compared to the next lowest, it was still a big degradation in fuel economy.
Yeah, usually we're looking at differences of tenths
Right.
of an
Yeah.
MPG, and here we're looking at a couple MPG difference between the next
Yeah.
closest.
3.2 miles per gallon worse than the HRV,
That's
which
disappointing.
was 5th in our fuel economy test. What about some other quirks that came up with the Seltos?
You know, it did okay in the car seat check. It was the only vehicle whose latch anchors weren't completely exposed. So a little bit of struggling, you know, to connect the car seat anchors. Not a lot, but it required more muscle than any other vehicle, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There were also some unusual missing features for, comfort and convenience. It's got ventilated seats. It doesn't have a heated steering wheel. It doesn't have dual zone automatic climate control. It doesn't have still, and we've harped on this with Kia vehicles forever now, it seems like, it doesn't have wireless CarPlay or Android Auto. You have to be plugged in.
Yeah, it's a strange omission because you're also getting this, really nice screen experience for the instrument panel and the multimedia system with really nice graphics, but it's missing a feature that might not be an expected feature, but you're getting it at a very affordable price in a lot of these other cars.
To see how the Seltos performed and read the full results of our comparison test, and to read my full review, head over to cars.com.